The statements made in my video, Bro Rape is not always funny, are true. The rapes mentioned therein occurred between June 29, 2005 and May 23, 2007 at the Pacific Garden Mission, 646 South State Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60605. The rapes were facilitated through the illegal use of rohypnol, gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB, and possibly other drugs. The rapes took place at night when I was supposed to be asleep, but was instead drugged and raped repeatedly. PGM is a homeless shelter. Produces the radio show Unshackled, and I ended up staying at PGM because I have limited resources and cannot afford even the cheapest housing. On the night of October 2nd, 2005, I was approached at PGM by an African American man between ages of 19 and 29, of dark complexion, about 5'11", and of slim build. He usually sleeps on the 4th floor at PGM, and sometimes wears his hair in an afro and sometimes in braids. He came over to where I was sitting on the 2nd floor at PGM and sat about 5 feet away from me. For purposes of identification, I will call him Suspect Number 1. Suspect Number 1 began a loud conversation, seemingly with one of the guys between us. After several minutes had passed, I heard my name. I did not know Suspect Number 1, and I was surprised that he knew who I was. I looked over, and Suspect Number 1 asked me if I had said that he was big. I asked him what he was talking about, and he told me that I had regularly been put under the influence of rohypnol, and that he and others at PGM had then regularly raped me in PGM. He told me that the rapes would continue unless I moved out of PGM. Immediately after this statement, he told me to settle the case against the Harold Washington Library Center, the HWLC, the City of Chicago, and others. The case he referred to is Circuit Court of Cook County, Civil Case Number 04L4735, Windsor Alexander v. the City of Chicago, the Chicago Public Library System, the Harold Washington Library Center, all security guards working at the HWLC on and at all times since June 24, 1998, all firms employing security guards who worked at the HWLC on and at all times since June 24, 1998, and all employees working in the HWLC Computer Center on and at all times since June 24, 1998, Robert Reed, Cecil Gamble, and others. The case will hereinafter be called the HWLC case. A number of those living at PGM are friends with some HWLC security guards. As I mentioned, all HWLC security guards are defendants in the HWLC case. The HWLC is approximately 2 blocks away from PGM. This was the end of Suspect Number 1's and my conversation. I have since learned that rohypnol causes one to temporarily forget activity, including rapes committed against the individual, which take place while that individual is under the influence of the drug. I have also discovered that those at PGM have used GHB during some of their rapes of me. On the morning of October 3, 2005, before 6:30 a.m., I was approached at PGM by another African American man, also between the ages of 19 and 29, of dark complexion, about 5'10", and medium build. He usually sleeps on the 3rd floor of PGM. He is sometimes called Peanut, wears his head shaven or close to shaven, has an injury to his left side which causes his body to lean to the left, and his first name may or may not be James, and his last name may or may not be Jordan. For purposes of identification, I will call him Suspect Number 2. Suspect Number 2 sat down in the first row of chairs behind the row of chairs that I was sitting in the 1st floor auditorium at PGM. Suspect Number 2 told me that he had raped me many times at PGM and that I had often cried like a baby. He told me that the rapes would continue unless I moved out of PGM. He told me to settle the HWLC case. Also, after the incident with Suspect Number 2, on the morning of October 3rd, 2005, after 6:30 a.m., I was approached at PGM by another African American man, also between ages of 19 and 29, of medium complexion, about 5'11", and medium build. He usually sleeps on the fourth floor of PGM, and he, at least from approximately February of 2005 until at least May of 2005, sold Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Tribune newspapers at the corner of Madison and Clark in Chicago. That that spot is now occupied by a Bank of America branch. For purposes of identification, I will call him suspect number 3. I know that suspect number 3 sold newspapers at the street corner because before I ended up at PGM in June of 2005, I often passed suspect number 3 selling newspapers at that corner. On October 3rd, 2005, suspect number 3 wore his hair in braids against his scalp in a sort of geometric pattern, but has since cut a lot of his hair off. Suspect number 3 came to where I was exercising on the second floor of PGM, and although the very large room was relatively empty, suspect number 3 sat about 20 feet away from me and began telling me that he had raped me and that I took all of it. He told me that this would continue unless I moved out. He told me to play ball, which, given my prior conversations with suspects numbers 1 and 2, I understood to mean that I had to settle the HWLC case or continue to be raped, and that I was not given the option of moving out without settling the HWLC case. While these 3 individuals are African American men, individuals of other races have participated in rapes of me at PGM. In addition, some individuals who do not reside at PGM have participated in rapes of me at PGM. Over the course of the next several nights, I was unable to get much sleep for several reasons. First, I was severely concerned about these confessions and aware that, given that it was October and shelters are generally overcrowded in the fall and winter months, I could not easily move to another shelter. Second, the large number of the overnight guests began to tell me that there was a videotape of me being raped under the influence of Rohypnol circulating around Chicago and on the internet. The tape was allegedly made when I was not living at PGM. These overnight guests indicated that the tape depicts a violent sexual assault of me and depicts what I can only define as torture. At that point, I had no vivid recollection of that sexual assault. Unfortunately, I now have vivid memories of dozens of such incidents. Those at PGM began harassing me by making the sounds that they said I made during this videotaped attack. They would say, "oh," and "ah," and "please don't," for what seemed like eternity. According to them, the following words and phrases are prominent in the video: settlement, say something, celebrate, how does it feel, get yourself a lawyer, it's over with, get a motion, and sue me. Since these reenactments of the tape's events continued into the times immediately before and after PGM's religious services, these reenactments would cut into the times that I could grab a nap before or after PGM's religious services. I have not seen this tape, but since October of 2005, I've come to be certain that it and other tapes exist. Third, at bedtime, several of the program men who oversee the 3rd and 4th floor sleeping dorms at PGM engaged in the same behavior that the overnight guests engaged in, i.e., they began harassing me by making reenactments of the tape's events.